This is the Week 11 preview for Monday, November 11th, 2019. And now, live from Las Vegas, the host of the Betmaker Show, Brian Blessing.
All right, let's go to the other side of the counter, looking ahead to another week in the NFL as we're in the back half of the season and things are tightening up in both conferences. Brian Blessing in Las Vegas, along with Bruce Marshall from the legendary publication, The Gold Sheet. Crazy weekend, Bruce. Just another weekend in the NFL.
Yeah, and these things are really starting to shape up. The races are some teams, the pretenders and the contenders are now sort of separating a little bit. Yeah, it was, we see it every year this time, and some of these teams that were hanging in there, you wonder if they're going to start to peel away, and other teams start to make a move. But, the same old, the referees again, a little too much involved again this past weekend, but it seems like we've said that a lot this year, Brian.
All right, man, let's roll. Let's look ahead to the Thursday game, Pittsburgh and Cleveland. Cleveland's a 2.5-point favorite. Total in the game's 40.5. Pittsburgh is back in the hunt for a wild card spot in the AFC. Cleveland got a win over the Bills. They had two good offensive series, and at the end of the day, Cleveland acted to me like they didn't want the game, and the Bills apparently wanted it less. Instead of going for the win at the end, they settled for a long field goal that went awry. But the one thing I would say, Pittsburgh's defense is flying around there, getting after it.
I think Pittsburgh's going to make the playoffs, Brian. That defense is a force of nature here, a force unto itself. And with Minkah Fitzpatrick scoring a touchdown every week, and along with what Devin Bush has brought in, I mean, these are two big-time playmakers that they've added to this defense. And you can see the confidence they had. They just were so in charge of that game against the Rams, and that's the way it's been for most of the last month for these guys. And Mason Rudolph is slowly but steadily maturing into this thing, and Mike Tomlin is doing one of his best jobs. I do not know why the Browns are favored here. Their red zone issues are now acute. I think they were 0 for 9 in snaps inside the 5 yesterday.
Bruce, yes, here, just to that point, they got a first and goal at the 1.
Yeah.
The Bills stopped them on all 3 downs.
Yeah.
And they went for it on 4th down and got a pass interference call in the end zone.
Yeah.
And then got another series of first and goal at the 1.
Yeah.
They had 8 cracks at it from the 1-yard line and did not get it in.
Yeah. Well, it's been acute. It was exacerbated yesterday, but it was more of what's been going on the last month and a half for the Browns. And Baker Mayfield, although he didn't throw any picks yesterday, I don't believe, still has 12 on the year. This is still a dysfunctional team, and Tomlin now up to 9-1, his last 10 as an underdog. I don't know why Pittsburgh is the underdog here. They're the better team. They're the team I think is going to make the playoffs, not the Browns. So our recommendation is pretty clear in this one.
And then Dallas is at Detroit. Dallas off a loss in what was a great football game. Minnesota gets the win. Basically, if Stafford plays, Dallas is going to be 3. If Stafford doesn't play, Dallas is going to be 7.5.
That's about right. I mean, that's Driscoll versus Stafford here, and so there's early thought Stafford might be back in there. That was a late scratch on Sunday. What a kick in the gut to people that on Detroit to see Driscoll out there. But this is a back issue with Stafford. We'll just see how it goes. The bottom line for Detroit is even with Stafford now, they're rapidly getting to the point, Brian, where they've almost got to win out here to keep their playoff hopes buoyant. And they have found ways to lose close games all year. They have usually been close. But I think Stafford versus non-Stafford makes a big difference. Now, if it's Driscoll again and you're getting over a touchdown, I almost would be a little bit more afraid of taking Dallas here, having to lay more than 7. I think Dallas can bounce back this week, although you never quite know with the Cowboys either. But the key, I think, in this game is that Zeke is going to have more room to run, or at least he figures to. The Lions allowing nearly 5 yards per carry this season. And Zeke couldn't get going against the Vikings on Sunday night, and that was a big difference in that game. So I think that'll be the key this week, getting Zeke going. And preference-wise, actually, you'd much rather face Driscoll than Stafford, but it's 4 or 5 points difference in the line there. So I'm not sure if it's a stronger recommendation with Stafford in there, but I think it's a Dallas recommendation either way.
All right, New Orleans is at Tampa Bay laying 5, total 51. Last week, we said, look, they're pro football teams, and you can make jokes and poke holes. But coming off a bye, Atlanta, okay, all they could say is let's start our season over. But the reality of it is, Bruce, as good as New Orleans had been and as bad as Atlanta was, division foes know each other. And, we said Atlanta was absolutely the play, but we thought the over was the play. Well, Atlanta lived up to their end of the equation. What happened to the Saints offense?
Well, I think it was maybe the Atlanta defense here. It was the Atlanta defense and the inability to figure it out. This came out of nowhere because Atlanta had shown nothing like what it did yesterday all season long. Falcons entered yesterday with 7 sacks all season. They got 6 of them yesterday. So Dan Quinn obviously toggled something in the off week there, in the bye week, and the defense suddenly rose up. This looked like the Falcons from a couple of years ago, and we hadn't seen that before the bye. Now, maybe Arthur Blank, he's being vindicated here for not hitting the eject button on Quinn. It's probably too late to salvage this season, at least as far as playoffs go, but the Falcons should never have been as bad as what started out the season at that 1-7 start.
All right, so then we go to Atlanta, Carolina. Can they keep it going? The Panthers 5.5 at home, but basically the result of yesterday, Panthers' good effort at Green Bay come up about 3 inches short, but Atlanta's win, all of a sudden this number goes from 7 down to 5.5, 6. The total's up there at 50.5.
Well, if it's that Atlanta team we saw yesterday, and if it's the same pass rush that they can muster this week, they could rattle Kyle Allen. He is definitely flying solo now. Cam Newton is done for the year, and he'd been out of there anyway, and Allen is still 5-2 as a starter. But now you wonder. I mean, if the Falcons are really what they showed us yesterday, they might be able to do something here. And it's all down to the defense, which had been a mess. But if Dan Quinn has really figured some things out, I think, given that Atlanta has been dangerous enough the past couple of years, it's only one game coming up. We can take our chance with them. We actually picked them to win this in the Gold Sheet 24-23. So I think let's see if we can ride this. Maybe it's the early stage of a recovery. It's only one game. If they go back to their old selves, then we can jump off the bandwagon. But I saw enough in that game in the Superdome to think maybe this defense has figured some things out.
All right, then we go to Jacksonville and Indianapolis, where the quarterbacks are the question. Indy's laying 3, totals 44. We know we're going to see Foles, but we don't know how that's going to play out. And then Hoyer was atrocious, and they'd be desperate to get Brissett back in there if they could.
That's true. And the bottom line, though, for Indy is neither of these guys are Andrew Luck. Bigger problem right now. I mean, Hoyer is a problem if he's back in there. A little better off with Brissett, but T.Y. Hilton still looks like he's going to be out for a bit with that hamstring. And without him out there, the Colts lack that ability to stretch the field at all. And this offense becomes quite predictable as they try to run with Marlon Mack in an intermediate passing game. It is very hard to go down the field in 4 or 5 yard chunks, and they couldn't do it yesterday against the Dolphins. Jacksonville, for what it's worth, has been good value in this series. 7-0-1 against a number of the last 8 meetings. The Minshew thing might have run aground in London. So, it makes sense to give Foles a look here as he's come back from injury and he got all that money to come in. So I think this is a worthwhile change for Coach Marone. I think Jacksonville goes in there and gets some. Indy's got some real trouble right now with this offense. And they are, listen, every game Indy plays is close. You get a feeling if they played Purdue, the game would be close in the fourth quarter. So Jags can certainly do that and maybe better. 20-17 was our score forecast for Jacksonville here.
Yeah, and you get this win if Jacksonville gets this win. And Houston has a tough one with Baltimore. We said you could throw a blanket over the AFC South. I mean, it would be a log jam, a ridiculous log jam where nine wins probably wins the division.
Yeah, I think so. And with Indy backing up and Houston with this tough game, and for a while I thought Indy was the best looking team in this division, but without Hilton, they're not. And that they need that dimension in there. And you wonder, any of these other teams could sneak through. Maybe it will. Maybe Houston is the team to beat in that case. We'll see.
All right, Bruce. Minnesota, nice effort, big effort. Win at Dallas, laying 10 at home to Denver, total 38.5. Now, Denver is coming off a win over the Browns, who to me are a dysfunctional mess. and they are coming off the bye. What do we get from the Browns? Or, excuse me, what do we get from the Broncos here off the bye?
Yeah, well, I'll give Uncle Vic credit. I mean, he's cobbled together mostly good efforts from this team. They usually don't have enough offense to get over the hump, but Brandon Allen was certainly no worse than Flacco in there. In fact, he played better. And so I think this maybe is more of an indictment on Flacco than what else is going on in Denver. Still, though, it's hard to put the Broncos offense down for a lot of points. And with Brandon Allen now making his first road start, it'll be in a noisy building. I'm not sure Denver gets the ground game going. That's really the bread and butter for the Broncos. And if the Vikings could stop Zeke on Sunday night, they're going to probably be able to keep Philip Lindsay in check. One note, though, I mean, Fangio last year, when he was defensive coordinator for the Bears, faced the Vikings and Cousins twice and beat them twice. So there's that angle. I think that might keep Denver within earshot for a while, but they don't have enough offense to win this game. And we had it 24-10 Vikings. This also might be another chance to look at that Denver under trend, which goes back to midway last season. It's now 15-3. Last 18, there was an over the last game against the Browns. But this is a pretty long sample of unders, and it would seem the dynamics would figure to suggest another under maybe on Sunday.
All right, not for the faint of heart, Jets at Washington. Washington's a 1.5-point favorite, 37.5. Jets produce some points, get a win over the Giants. The Redskins are off a bye. Now, you give them a pass for the Niners game because it was in a monsoon, but their last three games, albeit against pretty good competition, San Francisco and at Minnesota and at Buffalo in good defenses, the Redskins' last three games, they produced 0, 9, and 9 points.
Yeah, they're just not scoring touchdowns, and it's probably Dwayne Haskins in there again at quarterback. And whatever we say about Darnold, he is ahead of Haskins on the NFL learning curve. The Jets, I mean, you talk about needing a win, and there's growing suspicion, though, that Adam Gase is really a product of Peyton Manning, and that he really built his reputation those couple of years in Denver when Manning probably would have made anybody look good. So it was welcome for him, and at least because it was the Giants they beat. The Giants are the team in the first in the firing line in New York this week, so at least a little bit of a break for the Jets there. But I don't know if we can trust the Redskins with Haskins. And if they're really going to go with him, they're a harder sell than the Jets. 20-13 Jets, our score forecast in this one.
For outstanding information and special offerings and promotions, we invite you and encourage you to sign up for our newsletter today simply by going to the website at betmaker.com. All right, break up the Dolphins. They've won 2 in a row when there were doubts they'd win any. Fitzpatrick has done enough for them to win 2 games. Again, their defense showed up, but Indy's offense was an atrocity. The hidden nugget here, Buffalo's a 5.5-point favorite. The total on the game is 39. Bruce, I tell you right now, this is a home game for Buffalo. There will be 30,000 Bills fans there. Weather's going to be good. The Bills just, it was there for the taking. At the end of the game, the play calling was atrocious. But what I would say to you too, Bruce, the first matchup, the final score was 31-21. I understand why this total's low. The total is 39. There will be points in this game, but it is a home game for Buffalo. Believe me, there will be far more Bills fans than Dolphins fans there.
Well, the Dolphins are used to that, though. I don't think they've had a home crowd support all year, and they are playing very well. And I think the point spreads for Miami have been distorted all season by those first 2 games when they were obviously atrocious. They played a little better against Dallas and the Chargers, and then they made the switch to Fitzpatrick. But listen, the Buffalo, they were in that game. Pittsburgh, they were in that game. That's the only game Pittsburgh has not covered in the last month and a half, and they won these last 2. I mean, you just throw out those first 2 games. I mean, I don't know, based upon efforts of the last month and a half, this game should be, Buffalo 3 maybe. They're still pricing Miami too much like early in the season. Yeah, Fitzpatrick is liable to always revert back. to his old form. But they're playing well. And you know what? It's actually sort of refreshing that these players have rallied around Brian Flores, and they're looking at management, and they're saying, I don't care if you think we should lose. We want to win. And the production's been there. And frankly, with Buffalo, I'm not sure right now. I mean, out on the road, they'll have fans, but again, this team, game they could have won last week and didn't. And you got to look again in this case. You look at that schedule and you wonder, they've got 5 of their wins over teams that have a combined 7 wins this season, including Miami. But I think we gave the Dolphins a whirl here, 22-17. They look pretty legit to me, so we'll give them another shot.
All right, I would say that total is low. I think this game is in the mid to high 40s.
Yep.
The first game was 31-21. I understand why they made that number. That weather's going to be good. And maybe the worst thing, like I said, the worst thing that happened to Miami, there's a true sense of urgency now for the Bills because their schedule's about to get really tough. And they have got to win this game and the game against Denver next week, or all of a sudden what looked like a cupcake walk into the playoffs becomes a churn for them. Houston's at Baltimore. Baltimore's laying 4. Total on the game, 49.5 or 50. 2 quarterbacks of a similar ilk, Bruce. This should be entertaining. Yeah,
these are sort of the new generation of NFL quarterbacks here. And, boy, Jackson really looks good. And I thought, they took care of business quick yesterday against Cincinnati. And no doubt about what was going on there. No letdown after the Patriot game. That New England game, though, keeps coming back to me. I thought, actually, the Patriots had Baltimore pretty well defensed in that game. And Jackson, they just couldn't account for the things Jackson could do and his ability to escape. And if he can complete passes like he's been doing in recent weeks, then all of a sudden he becomes a very, very tough matchup for anybody. Now, Houston can do some of the same things, though, with Deshaun Watson. He can make some things happen. They're a pretty resilient bunch. For what it's worth, Baltimore's point spread marks on the road have been better than at home. They did beat the Patriots, but that's their only cover their last 6 at M&T Bank Stadium. So, and Houston's been a pretty good dog. So with Watson there, we'll give the technicals one more look here. Although it is getting kind of scary to go against the Ravens. This is quite a run they're on. They beat Seattle and New England handily, and then they routed Cincinnati like that. But beating the Seahawks and Patriots was the real eye-opener. Nonetheless, Houston, I think, keeps it close. 27-26 was our score forecast. Baltimore, that might be the best game of the week. And here on Sunday at M&T Bank.
We go to the late afternoon games. Arizona at San Francisco, pending the result of the Monday night game. Niners 13.5, 45.5. The one thing is Arizona, they compete. They show up and they compete. And listen, this is an Arizona team. Gave them all they could handle the last time they were out on the field. 28-25 was the final game one.
Yeah, they had beaten the 49ers 8 in a row. Well, that was some worse 49er teams, obviously, before that, Thursday night game and Halloween, but they still played very well down there and scared the 49ers. They, Kyler Murray is making progress here. His low interception numbers. He got up to 211 without a pick. Finally had one against Tampa Bay, but he's been awfully good and getting better. And Kingsbury doesn't look overmatched with this offense. It's been kind of exciting to see, and they are staying close. They've covered 5 of 6. We'll see how the Niners bounce back from the big Monday night game against Seattle. But for them, the schedule's about to get really dicey as well. After this one, Seattle, Arizona, Green Bay then comes in, and then you've got to go to Baltimore and then to New Orleans. So we could be talking about a far different 49ers situation by the time we get into December than we're talking about here in November. So we'll see. I think we gave Arizona a shot to stick around in this game because they're playing everybody competitive. And like we said, Murray and this offense have evolved pretty nice from the start of the season. I think they're pretty happy with what's going on with Kingsbury down there in the desert.
All right, it was a great bye week for the Eagles, sitting there minding their own business, and the Cowboys lost. Both the Patriots and Eagles coming off a bye. Patriots off a loss, laying 3.5, 44.5.
Yeah, both off a bye here. Belichick's been pretty good off a bye in recent years. interestingly, off a straight-up loss, not as great. There's not been a big sample there, but only 4-4 the last 8 against the spread after a straight-up loss. So that's not as compelling. That the off the bye thing is pretty compelling. And, of course, this is the rematch from Super Bowl 52, which they are still celebrating in Philadelphia and which they will be reliving all week on WIP as they lead up to this game. And the Philly fans recall that great night in Minneapolis 21 months ago. Now, the deal here, I don't know that Doug Peterson has dialed up a game plan close to that since the Super Bowl, and that was pretty spectacular what he did in that game at U.S. Bank Stadium, but we haven't seen that lately from Philly. No Philly specials or anything like that. And, the Patriots, I think it was more a function of just not being able to deal with Lamar Jackson. Carson Wentz post-injury is not like Jackson. I mean, before he got hurt, he was doing some of those same things, but not quite as much now. So if you defend Wentz properly, I don't think he's going to be able to wiggle out of these jams the way Jackson did. More so, Philadelphia's had some injury problems in the secondary. They're getting a bit healthier, but that's been sort of a weak link all year. And Brady was getting pretty comfy with Mohamed Sanu before the bye week, and I think that continues through the second half of the season. We might look back and say that was one of the big pickups, trade pickups during the year. It's taken a little bit of pressure off of Edelman. This is a feature wideout in his own right, and you give another weapon like that to Brady, it could make a difference. We like all the dynamics here, and Belichick gets the payback for the Super Bowl. 27-16 Patriots. We think they go in there. That's a Gold Sheet Q release on Sunday.
And we've got Cincy at Oakland. Oakland laying 10.5, 48.5. This is uncharted waters. This is what I talked to Jack, our favorite odds maker, about. Oakland, you have a real good run right now, but Oakland laying 10.5 to anybody, although Cincinnati's a dog's breakfast.
Yeah, I would wonder here, and I don't think it's going to happen with Cincinnati, but for their sake, or else, all of a sudden that big donut, it's getting bigger, and I'm trying to find a win. Even the Miami game in late December doesn't look like it. Right now Miami would be favored in that game, but if they got Andy Dalton back in there, they would have a shot. The Bengals have been a pretty good road underdog with Dalton in the last year, but I do not know if any of that applies with Ryan Finley. And it's not just Finley. They are giving rookies a look all throughout the roster now. And I wonder, and they probably have told Zach Taylor, don't worry about the record. I thought for a bit he might be a one-and-done candidate, but apparently they don't mind giving a test run to all these guys. And Finley in particular, I think they want to see what they've got with him. Whatever happens in the draft, whether the Bengals are the first team on the clock or whatever, they're going to have a high pick, and there's going to be a quarterback out there. So I think they're kind of looking down the road, seeing what they've got with Finley, and deciding if they want to invest in one of those quarterbacks coming out at the top of the first round. I think they probably will. But the bottom line is, for right now, if they're not using Dalton, and A.J. Green is still out, I thought he might come back last week. He re-injured himself, and he's not there. It looks like he won't be there again. Then Cincy's a very hard sell. I mean, this is not an NFL team right now unless they put Dalton in there, and right now they're not doing it. So we had a 27-10 Oakland. You're right. It is scary. Oakland tends to play to the level of the opposition, and this is uncharted territory for them. It's just right now, unless the Bengals put Dalton in there, they're a very hard team to trust.
Chicago's at the Rams, Bruce, the Sunday night game, and the Rams are laying 6.5. The total on the game is 40. I have no idea what the Rams are thinking. I don't know if there's an inability to run the football. I mean, listen, you've got Gurley, Mack, and the Henderson kid. I don't know if they can't run the ball, but they abandon the run every game. And Goff is throwing far too often. He's been ineffective, and the play calling is horrific. And all of a sudden, you're looking at a total for a Rams game of 40. Last year, they were in the mid-50s.
Yeah, and I think this total's too high because of what you say. The play calling has completely gone off the rails here. I am wondering if what Bill Belichick did in the Super Bowl there, and it's just
ruined them. Yeah, gave a blueprint.
Gave a blueprint, and it's sort of to close the flanks off there. And the bottom line is, I think the Rams, if they want to run up the middle, they can probably do okay with that. But they're abandoning it too much, and McVay's trying to be too cute. And frankly, I'm not sure how good Jared Goff really is. I think he's been kind of exposed here. And this whole thing has gone off the rails. I don't think either of these teams are making the playoffs. That's not a bold statement with the Bears, but the Rams don't look like they've got it to me either. Last year, these teams played in December. The Bears actually might have been one of the first teams to kind of expose the McVay offense. They really solved the riddle when Fangio was there last year. It was a 15-6 real grinder in Cold Soldier Field Sunday night last December. But that might have been the sort of the start of the Ram offense going off the rails here. Do we trust Mitchell Trubisky and the Bears offense to do anything to give them a chance here? I think they might be able to do enough. Montgomery is the one bright spot, the rookie from Iowa State, the running back. But you just can't put the Rams down for many points. I think the 40 is too high here. And we had it 16-13 Rams. Probably take the Bears. But definitely look under. I don't know if either of these teams can score much, and the defenses are still sturdy each way. So I think lower scoring, that's the way it's going to look.
All right, then we go to the Monday night game, and I also mentioned this to Jack. If Oakland takes care of business against Cincinnati, Kansas City's going against a Chargers team that had a great game against Green Bay, and then Rivers looked like Father Time in the next game. But Casey laying 4 at the Chargers, total 52.5. If the Raiders win Sunday, Bruce, Casey needs this game to stay in first place.
Well, remember, this game's in Mexico City, Brian, and this is, last year here in Estadio Azteca, this is where the Chiefs are supposed to play the Rams, and then the pitch was so unplayable, they had to move that game to the LA Coliseum. So now the fans of Mexico City finally get the chance to see Patrick Mahomes and see if he can contribute to stadium lore down there at the Azteca, because this is where Pele and Maradona won World Cups. So anyway, there's a lot of history in that place. We'll see what Mahomes can do. That was bitter against Tennessee. Actually, I thought the Kansas City defense made the stop it needed to make, inside of 2 minutes. But then they were asked to do it again because the offense short-circuited with some poor play calling and a botched field goal. And that was by the way, kicking was a botched kicking was the theme throughout the league yesterday, this past weekend. And it certainly was for the Chiefs. It cost them that game. But the offense is still fully functional. The Chargers really couldn't slow Mahomes last year. They did steal a win at Arrowhead late last December that helped the Chargers get in the playoffs. But we haven't seen that Charger team as much this year. Rivers is less mobile. They've had a few too many injuries. And even though the running game has perked up the last couple of weeks, they finally got Melvin Gordon going again after he was very rusty coming back from his holdout. You got to outscore these guys, and I'm not sure the Chargers can do it. 35-26 Chiefs. Yeah, you're right. They're going to probably be under some pressure from the Raiders. And they have, and they've got, the Raiders coming up after the bye following this game. So it's getting kind of hairy there in the AFC West.
Have you ever seen anything like it? I mean, honestly, it's sad to say, but I mean, the Colts have to cut bait with Vinatieri. That's ridiculous. And missed extra points. We're seeing about 4 a week. I don't know what's going on with the kickers.
Yeah, it really was. We were watching the games yesterday, and we were commenting on it, and it's kind of almost a league-wide thing. I don't know how many PATs were missed yesterday. It might have been a weekend record, but field goals too. The Chiefs really, they totally blame special teams for that loss yesterday. And you're right, it's acute. Indianapolis, many teams. And you wonder if, let's see how this field plays on Monday night too against with the Chargers and Chiefs, because they couldn't play on that thing last year, and let's hope they fix that up before they play this one on Monday.
All right, he's Bruce Marshall, the legendary publication, The Gold Sheet. I'm Brian Blessing. There you have it. We're looking ahead. Another big week of action coming up in the NFL.
Betmaker, let's make some money tonight.
Well, that's the Betmaker Show for now. We publish multiple times each week. We'd like to thank you for listening, and if you liked what you heard, please take a moment to leave a rating and review, or subscribe to our show feed, or share our show with a friend or two and help us grow the show. We very much appreciate it. Visit us on the web at betmaker.com, and reminder to sign up for the newsletter. Thanks to our engineer, Darren Vandermolen, and producer, Mike Gallivan. The Betmaker Show is a production of Cardinal Marketing Incorporated. Betmaker is a registered trademark. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this content without the express written consent of Cardinal Marketing Incorporated is strictly prohibited.
The handicapping and sports odds information contained on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Please confirm the wagering regulations in your jurisdiction, as they vary from state to state, province to province, and country to country. Using this information to contravene any law or statute is prohibited. The podcast is not associated with, nor is it endorsed by any professional or collegiate league, association, or team. This podcast does not target and is not intended for an audience under the age of 18. If you think that you have a gambling addiction, stop this podcast now and please seek help.
Gambling and betting on sports is a form of entertainment and should be about having a good time. But when done excessively, it may negatively affect other areas of a person's life, such as their physical and mental health, school or work performance, finances, and or interpersonal relationships. At Betmaker.com and the Betmaker Show, we're concerned about the addiction that gambling may cause, and for this reason, we encourage everyone to practice responsible gambling, an approach to gambling that helps you ensure that it remains an enjoyable activity. Here are the main principles of responsible gambling. Don't think of gambling as a way to make money. Always gamble with money that you can afford to lose. Set limits and stick to them. Never chase losses. Don't gamble when you're depressed or upset, and create a healthy balance. Always be aware of how much time you spend gambling or thinking about gambling. And do not allow gambling to cause you to miss out on time with family and friends or time spent on other activities you enjoy. By following these guidelines, gambling can be a good time and great entertainment. If you feel at any time that your gambling is taking away from important areas of your life, is causing you stress or depression, or is leading to financial losses that are beyond your control, please reach out for help. Learn more at responsiblegambling.org.